Hello YouTube, it's Lion here with Hobbies of a Man once again, and today we are doing another light novel review. Now today we are going to be reviewing Solo Leveling Volume 1. This is written by Chu Gong, and this is a Korean light novel. This is the first Korean light novel that I know of that is available in English in a published format. I know that there's a lot of them available on web novel, and that's technically traditional publishing, but I've tried reading novels on there and they just feel really unfinished and kind of like not edited enough, and the translation seems kind of rough sometimes for the Korean ones, so I'm not really sure. But this is the first, as far as I know, official, like properly edited, physically published light novel from Korea that we have available in English. Now the demographic here, and this is published by Yenon, by the way. Yeah, there we go. So the demographic here is kind of hard to place. It reads like a seinen or a shonen. It kind of has those same vibes, but the main character is a 24-year-old, and the way Japanese stuff works, or Korean stuff works, it's not the same as the way Japanese stuff works, right? So we don't actually have a good demographic label, but I personally would put it in adult fantasy, because there's a lot of gore, there's a lot of like just stuff that maybe teenagers would like, that would be definitely not really viable for a lot of teenagers, I guess. Well, kind of, I don't know, it depends on your preferences, I guess, but I think just for like safety preferences, this would definitely be kind of like a seinen, especially since it's ages 16 and up. So there you go, that's basically a seinen. This is like YA hitting towards adult fantasy. So yeah, there you go. And the genres here are action, fantasy, and lit RPG. Now I call it lit RPG, even though technically this isn't an actual label for this story, because there's game elements and they play a huge role in the development of the story. So there you go. And this does have an adaptation. It's a manhwa, which is a Korean comic book. And it's a very interesting kind of thing, because manhwa has this very kind of like interesting style. It's basically like top down instead of side to side, and it's basically so you can read it on your phone or on an iPad or tablet or computer or whatever. And so it's actually, to me, it seems kind of tough to put into a book format, but they made it work. And the other thing is that the art style for those is very interesting. It's kind of like body proportions and style of Western comics with a lot of the stylistic choices that manga has. Like a lot of the faces and stuff look very manga-like, but the body proportions and just how tall and how high and how everything looks kind of pretty samey, but still very like beautiful, would be kind of similar to how Western comics work to me. But I mean, of course, that's not really like necessarily true. That's just like the best way I understand it in my mind, right? So yeah. Now the premise of the story here is that the world changed when these portals started appearing, across the globe. And then we get introduced to our main character, which is the lowest level hunter, which are people that go into these portals in order to kill these monsters before they, kill people on Earth. And he's so weak that he's basically like actually the weakest person that is a hunter. He's barely above a regular person. In fact, like really strong regular people could probably kill him without any problems. He's that weak. And then there's this accident that happens, and he suddenly gets the ability to level up, like in a video game. And basically we follow this giant grind fest as he goes from zero to hero, basically. And we see him not necessarily get super OP, but definitely climb the ranks very fast, from loser to kind of like a mid-level to high-level hunter. And yeah, I was actually surprised. I thought it was going to be pretty boring. I only picked it up because everyone hypes it up and because it was like cool to kind of pick up something that came out so I can review it and get kind of get views out of it, basically. But I was actually really pleasantly surprised. I really did enjoy it a lot. It's really good. Some people that have read a lot more light novels will probably say that it's kind of boring. It's like very basic, and it follows a overpowered protagonist, kind of. So a lot of people would probably be bored if they've read a lot of light novels, but I personally haven't read that many. I think about 30 different series I've tried at least one volume from. So to me, this is still pretty fresh and pretty interesting and new. And the writing style here is very different from Japanese light novels. There's a lot of crazy, funny, funky things that light novels have with the characters. And they're all like otaku and they're very like chuny. This one isn't really like that. This is a very much more grounded, much more adult character that has, financial troubles and is trying to do his best to save his mother. So I was really interested with the prose. It actually harkens a lot more towards Western fantasy, like urban fantasy, than it really does like Japanese light novels. So there you go. Now let's jump into the plot line here. It's very good. I really did enjoy it. It has a very methodical, like slow going approach to everything that I really enjoy. I think it's very nice. It's kind of really zen, just kind of really relaxing, and you kind of are just chugging along as this character kind of grows and figures out what the hell's going on with his power level, right? So I actually really liked it, and I really enjoy how it unraveled everything and how everything was really nicely explained without feeling like they were dumping exposition on you. Of course, this was done through the fact that our character doesn't really know what's going on either, and so he's just like figuring it out on his own, and as he figures it out, you get to learn about it, right? So very nicely done. I really did like it a lot. But I have read some lit RPG where like that happens and it still feels like there's way too much exposition. But this one didn't really waste any time. It just like gave you the basics and the general idea and slowly built it up instead of like giving it all to you at the beginning. So really good stuff there. Really well done from Chugong. Now the key plot points here are basically the introduction to the world, which is kind of like a prologue, and then the introduction to our main character, and then they go on that big hunt that goes wrong. And basically, they ended up on this, I think it was called a double dungeon, or a double labyrinth, or a double portal, something like that. Basically, it's a dungeon inside a dungeon, and they end up there, and Jinwoon Sang, our main character, for some reason, is able to figure out the like mental test that they're supposed to be undergoing in order to work this out. And I guess that's why he gets leveled up when no one else does. And beyond that, we basically get the whole kind of idea that, there's this thing called Second Awakening, which is when a low-level hunter or a hunter of some middle level manages to overcome some situation that allows them to awaken again and basically ups their level again, right? So everyone has a regular awakening, and then at that awakening, it turns out they get everything assigned to them. So like when Jinwoo Sang got his first awakening, he was, granted the rank of E rank and then given, some minimal abilities. And now he has awakened again, and so he gets the second ability of leveling, right? So there you go. That's how it kind of works. And then we basically spend the first third of the book, more or less, trying to figure out what the heck this system is and how it works. And then from there, we just get a bunch of different hunter situations. So he goes on a hunt. It turns out they're bad guys. He has to figure out what to do. A bunch of stuff like that. And then a good bit of spelunking there near the last third of the book, where he joins forces with this other guy called Jinhu. I don't know how to say his name, but they join forces and they work towards doing this thing in order to, make a lot of money off of being hunters. And yeah, it's just really good stuff. I really did enjoy it quite a bit. And yeah, now the characters here are probably the weakest aspect here. Like, it's good. I enjoyed every character that was mentioned, but none of the characters really bring anything significant to the table or to Jinwoo himself beyond, Jinwoo. So, let me kind of explain and go through each character. So, Jinwoo is our main character, right? And basically, he's like the weakest person ever. And we see him turn from the weakest person to a pretty adequate person And basically the whole thing is probably going to be he has to go OP, right? So pretty good journey there. He gets about halfway through it, I guess, more or less throughout this book. Wait, let me think. Yeah, more or less. I guess he basically makes it from 0 to about 50% of being, you know, on his way to being the top dog in this world. And, you know, he's interesting, but he's really not that special either. He's a pretty middle of the road character. He has, you know, responsibilities to his family, and that's why he's a hunter, because it actually makes him a lot more money than being a normal worker, a lot faster, and he needs to pay off a lot of debts for his mom's medical bills. And he also takes care of his younger sister, and he has to pay for her university because he never got the opportunity to go to university because he didn't have money. So he wants to give his sister the opportunity, and it's just really, honestly, he's a pretty wholesome guy. He's like a pretty nice dude, and he's doing his best to make it work, but obviously he doesn't have the skills. And now that he has a power, well, he kind of gets a little cocky. But in general, I think he's pretty justified in the way that he acts. Maybe? Well, kind of. I would say that in general he is, but there's certain circumstances that come up during the series or during the story that it maybe isn't justified. So, you know, everyone kind of has their own moral code, and I would say that undermines some of the problems with him, like killing things or people, I guess, really isn't necessarily, you know, good, but it's also part of what he needed to do. So it's like, I don't know. I would say that it's pretty objectionable. Like, I wouldn't consider him a great person, but the justification for why he's doing these things is a pretty fair one in general, right? And then we have Jinho, who is basically this rich kid that wants to be a hunter because it's actually beneficial to him and his family to do so. And yeah, he ends up being Jinwoo's lackey. Basically, it's a whole kind of like mob mentality thing here where like, oh, he's the most powerful, so I'm going to be his lackey because he saved my life. And now, you know, I owe it to him. So we're going to work something out like the mafia. So it was pretty funny, but I don't know. I don't really like him as a character that much because he's just so kind of like, I don't know. He reminds me of like a loyal dog, and that's not a great characterization to have. And then there's Yura, which is a nurse, and she kind of comes off as a gold digger the 1 or 2 times that we see her. But in general, she's a very minimal character. She's only, I only brought her up because some other reviewers have talked about her, and I just didn't think that she was really all that important. But I mean, if other people are bringing her up, maybe there is something important there that I missed. So I did want to mention her just in case. And then we have Chiyul, which is this older man. He's kind of like a mentor for Jinwoo, but not really. Because he's kind of like the old guy that worked with him on a lot of raids that he ends up saving. And so the old guy is like, yeah, I'll trust you with my life now. We're going to do this thing, and I'm just going to help you out when it's necessary. Pretty cool guy. I do like him, but I mean, again, not very important. And the last character that I would say is important is Yu Hee, who is this pretty interesting kind of like healer character. She went through the same thing as hunters, but instead of being a hunter, like specifically, she actually ended up being a healer of a really high level, but she helps out the Hunters Association that Jin was part of, and they have kind of like a bit of a romantic thing going on there with each other. Quite like it. It's really cute, but like, I don't know. I didn't really see anything developing there with them, especially with what happens at the end. So, I don't know. She'll probably come back eventually, though. And yeah, that's it. Like, in general, none of them are bad. In fact, the bad guys are actually pretty remarkable, but like, I don't want to talk about it because it's like pretty late game in the book. So, yeah, but in general, it's just like, they're interesting, but there's nothing super amazing about them, if you know what I mean. And then the world building here is actually pretty solid. The exposition is great, like I said earlier, and it's just really well done. There's not that much to do. Like, the main character just learns about how this stuff works, and he mentions stuff offhandedly, and through that, you get to see a lot about this world, so that's pretty cool. And the most interesting part is that the monsters are pretty cool. They're all pretty interesting. They're not super like noticeable. Like a lot of the times, they're not really remarked on that much, beyond the fact that like, oh, this one's strong, this one's weak, this one looks like a wolf, this one looks like that, and then Jinwoo's just killing all of them. But like in general, they're not really that well written or like given that much attention, but the little bits of stuff that we do get about them are pretty interesting, so I quite like it. And the game mechanics are pretty cool. They're very nicely done. It doesn't get in the way of the story that often, which is really good. Sometimes it's a little annoying to have to like start and stop reading when you have like, okay, a bunch of text and then a bunch of different like game mechanic pieces. So in general, I think that this is very nicely integrated between the two of them, and it all flows really nicely, which is something that doesn't always happen in a lot of lit RPG stories. So I'm quite happy with that. And lots of hunter organization / politics going on, which is actually really interesting. It's very cool, and it makes total sense, right? Like, if you have these supernatural people with supernatural powers, it would change the dynamic about how countries work, right? And depending on how many hunters you have, you basically are changing how strong a country is, and how rich a country is, because hunters bring in a lot of physical power and a lot of money through the portals. So really cool stuff. I did really enjoy that. Very nicely done. Now, in terms of art here, there's really only one image, and it's this one, which looks pretty cool. It looks kind of emo, but in general, I like him. And then there's this like cover page thing, and we get these nice textures on some of the pages. And there's also this, which is a kind of nice chapter page. So it's really good. Like, in general, I would have liked a few more illustrations, but it makes sense that there wouldn't be that many. Especially with a manhwa, that's even more popular than the light novel. I kind of get why, but I would have liked it if there was a few more, because there's some really cool images that show up in the book that I just wish happened and that I could see. So I'll probably end up picking the manhwa as well, but I don't know. Maybe I should read it online. I don't know if there's any legal website I can get it on. Probably not, so I'll just probably buy it. So, yeah. And fan service wise, well, there's not really anything. There's a few suggestive comments here and there. Like, the female characters realize that he's attractive, and Yura especially is like, maybe I could get with him and I could get something out of it, right? Because she's kind of like a gold digger, like I said. But in general, there's really nothing like there. So if you're someone that really wants fan service in every book, this one's not for you. Although this might actually be different in the manhwa, because with a character drawing, they might change up the character design to be more appealing. So I'm not really sure, but in the book itself, there's really no fan service. So there you go. Now, rating-wise, I would definitely give this a 4 out of 5. It's very solid. It's very good, and I was actually pleasantly surprised by the story and how it worked. I just really enjoyed how everything worked, and like I said earlier, that methodical, slow pace of developing the world was really nice for me. I really did enjoy it. And there was also like a lot of gore and a lot of serious, scary like stuff happening that I thought was really cool. Like, I didn't expect it to be that gory and messed up, but it's pretty awesome. So, 4 out of 5 is a solid score for me. And yeah, do I recommend this title? Yeah, I definitely recommend it. It's really good. The hype is pretty well earned, in my opinion, and I'm really excited to read more of it. But again, I think that the manhwa is really the thing that catapulted this into a huge amount of popularity. So maybe you should check that out instead, because I don't think that this will really appeal to everyone. You know what I mean? So yeah. Now, similar titles, well, I can't really think of one that's really all that like similar. Most of the light novels that I've read most of the lit RPG stories that I've read are all kind of like in a secondary fantasy world or in an isekai format. And not that many of them are as gory and messed up as this one. So I think Spider So What is the most similar, but only in how gory stuff is and the kind of way that the main character learns about their game system. However, Spider So What is a lot more lively with the main character. This main character is a little bit more surly and a little bit more brooding, so, you know, take your pick there. But yeah, that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I really appreciate you guys. See you guys later.